video is going to be working on spinal mobility and bringing as much balance as we can to both sides of the spine as you move. So first of all, we're going to come down onto the mat in relaxation position. You'll need your small head cushion underneath your head. Coming down onto your back. Head cushion underneath the back of the skull, away from the neck. Feet and knees hip distance apart. Weight through the back of the pelvis, that nice flat area, the sacrum, that we can just rest our weight through. And then weight through the back of the ribs, shoulders nice and wide, arms lengthened down by your side, fingers active as well. Take a couple of breaths here, just deep and wide into the ribs, trying to work on that nice lateral breathing, really filling the sides and the backs of your ribs. Another breath here. Gaze directly up to the ceiling, length through the back of the neck. Now we're just going to work a little bit on our lower spine and pelvic mobility. We're going to do some pelvic clocks. So this is where we think about a marble in the center of our belly, and we're going to roll the marble around the clock face. So our clock face is from the belly button around to the hip, down to the pubic bone, back over to the other hip, and back up to the belly button again. So think about the belly button being 12 o'clock. You're going to roll the marble back towards the belly button, and now you're going to allow the pelvis to move so that you can roll your imaginary marble around to 3 o'clock. Keep going around to 4, 5 and 6 o'clock is where the pubic bone tips away a little bit down towards your heels. And now tip towards the other side, the other hip bone towards 9 o'clock, back around the clock face, back up to 12. And again in this direction. Keep going one more time in this direction. Think about almost rolling around the sacrum, so you're creating a circular movement around the center of the sacrum. And when you finish that one, then we go 2 in the opposite direction. Try and keep your knees really as still as possible so that you're just moving the pelvis and articulating through the lower part of your spine, your lumbar spine, very slightly as you make these movements. Don't force them. This is just about gaining some mobility. And when you finish the second one in that direction, just bring your pelvis back so that you're resting evenly through the center of the sacrum. And you can check whether your pelvis is in a neutral alignment by just placing the fingertips on the pubic bone and the heels of your hands just on the hip bone. And just check that shape, the hands together, are parallel to the floor. That's more or less a neutral position. Yours may be slightly different, and that's fine. But I don't want you to be uncomfortable, but I also want you to be aware of where a neutral pelvis is so that we can work towards that placement. So the first exercise we're going to do after this, your pelvic clocks, is we're going to do some shoulder mobility, some rib cage closure. So starting with the arms down by your side, weight through the back of your ribs, the back of your head, feet still hip distance apart. We're going to breathe in as we bring both arms up over the chest. Palms are facing forwards, and breathe out as you take the arms behind you towards the ears. Breathe in to come back up to the top, and breathe out to close back down again. And again, breathing in to come up. Breathe out, let the breastbone sink down as you take the arms overhead. Breathe in as you come up, and breathe out as you come back down. Do a couple more here, just in your own time. Really thinking about sinking those ribs down towards the mat as you take the arms overhead. Really connecting the abdominal muscles down the front of the body to help with keeping the spine in a nice neutral alignment as you work the shoulders. And when we've done that, now we're going to come into some spine curls. There are 2 ways you can do the spine curls. You could do them with a cushion between your knees to help get a little bit more activation through the center of the body, or you can do them without. I will show you with the cushion, with the ball. So just place the ball or the cushion between the knees, And just still have the knees and feet just with a connection onto the ball. You may find that they're a little bit narrower than hip distance, that's okay, but just as long as you've got a slight connection onto the ball, just in that resting position. And now just release that connection to the ball. And then we're going to breathe in to prepare, and as we breathe out, now we're going to put a gentle squeeze onto the ball to activate the inner thighs and into the lower pelvic muscles. And then we're going to begin by rolling the pelvis back towards your ribs so that your lower back imprints on the mat, and in activating the glutes and the hamstrings down the back of the legs, we're going to keep rolling, lifting the pelvis up off the mat, keep peeling the spine up, one vertebra at a time, just as far as the tips of the shoulder blades is the highest point, which you can stop lower than that, just making sure you're drawing the pubic bone back towards the ribs, breathing in at the top, and breathe out to roll the spine back down again, one vertebra at a time. Rolling through to a neutral position again. And again, breathe in to prepare, breathe out, connect with the ball. Come up to the top. Really working the glutes and the hamstrings to give good extension through the front of the hip. Breathing in at the top and breathing out to roll the spine back down again, one vertebra at a time. Back to neutral, and then releasing the ball. One more here. Just have a quick glance or check that your hip bones are as level as possible when you come up to the top, and that they're coming up and down, both at the same level as well. You can use your hands for cues here, that's absolutely fine, they don't have to be down on the mat. Okay, so let's remove the ball. And now we're going to come into some more spine curls, but we're going to just add another movement into it. So we're going to come up into a spine curl without the ball. So we're going to come up into a spine curl. And holding at the top, you're just going to allow one hip to dip slightly while keeping the other hip elevated. So just allow one hip to drop slightly. You'll feel a slight rotation through the lower part of the spine. And then take the hip back up. And the other side. And take the hip back up. Nice breath in at the top. And then roll the spine back down again. And again. Breathing out as you roll the spine up off the mat. Lengthen through the front of the hips. And now just allow one hip to dip, keeping the other one elevated. And return. And dip. And return. Breathe in. And then breathe out to roll back down again. Let's just do one more. Allowing the hip to drop just slightly, keeping the other one elevated. This is just a little bit of gentle rotation through the lumbar spine. And then back down to neutral again. Okay, so now we're going to come into some hip rolls. So for our hip rolls, we can also put a ball between the knees, but you can also do it without, that's your choice. If you put the ball between your knees, just make sure you bring your feet a little bit closer together so that you have that connection as you do the hip roll. I'm going to do it with just my feet together and my knees together as well without the ball. So we're going to breathe in to prepare, and as we breathe out, we're going to allow the pelvis, to roll to one side. I'm going to the right first. Allowing the left side of the pelvis to lift up, going as far as I can, keeping the opposite shoulder on the mat. Breathe in to hold, and breathe out to recenter. And again, breathe in to prepare, breathe out, roll to the other side, keep the knees and the feet glued together, and the opposite shoulder on the mat. Feel a nice sense of elongation down the top side of the body. Breathe in to hold, and breathe out to return. And again. Last one. Okay, now we're going to do a different movement where we're going to extend through the front of the hip, and we're also going to add in an opposite arm movement as well. So we're going to breathe in to prepare, and as we breathe out, we're going to lengthen the right leg along the mat as we take the left arm up and overhead. We breathe in to return back to the start position. And the other side, breathe out as you take the leg away and arm overhead. The arm is just like half a rib cage closure, it just goes as far as the ear, no further. And breathe in to return. And again the opposite side. So here we're extending through the front of the hip, and the challenge here is to keep your pelvis still in a neutral position and not allow it to tip away towards the bottom of the mat. So you're using your centering, your abdominal muscles to keep the pelvis nice and flat. And again. Last one to each side. Really enjoy that sense of length as you do this movement. Really being conscious of the pelvis staying as even as it possibly can in a neutral position, but also enjoying that stretch through the front of the hip. Now we're going to come into some bridges, which is like a spine curl, but we don't have a curl in it, but we end up at the same position in a bridge. So first of all, what we're going to do, we're going to give ourselves a little bit more of a challenge. So we're going to take the arms up into a shoulder drop position. So arms up above the shoulders, palms facing in, and you want your feet back at hip distance apart. And now we're simply going to activate the glutes and the hamstrings and drive the hips up. So breathe in, and as you breathe out, up in one movement, and then down as you breathe in. And again, up and down, up and down. So really here you're activating through the glutes and the hamstrings, really using them and working them to strengthen them. And again, hopefully you're feeling that your pelvis is going up and down in a nice even parallel position to the floor. Last one or two, I think. I've lost count, I usually do. Okay, and back down again, and arms back down by the side. So now we're going to work on the upper part of the spine. We're going to come into some curl-ups and then some oblique curl-ups. So just remove the head cushion from behind your head, interlace the fingers behind the head, and just rest the head, the back of the head, into the hands. Just allow the elbows to open, just to feel that nice stretch across your chest. Just enjoy that nice opening feeling. And now, bringing the elbows into your peripheral vision, make sure that your shoulders are well away from your ears. There's a length through the back of your neck. Gaze is still back up to the ceiling. You should be able to see your elbows just in the corner of your vision. Pelvis is in a nice neutral position, and your feet and knees still parallel and hip distance apart. Weight through the back of the chest before you start, making sure those ribs are nice and heavy into the mat. And then we're going to breathe in nice and wide, and as we breathe out, we're going to tuck the chin and come up into a nice curl up. We're going to breathe in to hold, and breathe out to roll the spine back down again. And again, breathe in, breathe out, tuck the chin. Really think about lengthening through the back of the spine. Breathe in at the top, and breathe out to come back down again. And again. Think about your ribs moving down towards your hips. And really allow that head to be heavy into your hands to really keep the length through the back of the spine. Last one. And now we're going to come into some oblique curl-ups. So this is where we add a rotation into our curl-up. So breathe in to prepare, breathe out, tuck the chin, begin to nod the head. And as you do that, you're rotating to one side, bringing the top elbow up towards the opposite knee and as high as you can. Breathing in at the top And breathe out to return the movement back down to the mat. And again, breathe in to prepare, breathe out to nod, begin to roll and rotate. And back down again. So here we're using the oblique muscles, the muscles around the sides of the body, as well as the other muscles of the abdominals, and also using our centre to really keep a nice neutral pelvis in this position. So just go as far as you can, either being limited by the curl up itself or by the movement of the pelvis. Don't allow the pelvis to rock from side to side. You want to keep it nice and horizontal to the mat. Last one like this, and then we're going to add in one more movement. Now we're going to come up into our curl up, and we're going to hold as we slide the opposite leg carefully along the mat as far as you can, keeping the pelvis in a neutral position. Draw the leg back in and return the curl up. And the other side, breathing out as you come up. Breathe in, breathe out as you lengthen the leg away. Breathe in as you return and return your curl up. One more to each side. So this gives you a little bit of balance actually to the movement. And the leg acts as to help you anchor the pelvis, but also to perhaps get a little bit more in your rotation for your oblique curl. And now we're going to come round onto our into 4-point kneeling, and we're going to do some cat and some tabletop. So coming round into 4-point kneeling. So now we want to get into a good start position. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. And just take a moment to really find a sense of balance here. You do a little tilt and tuck, just to make sure that your pelvis is as neutral as it can be. And think about length down both sides of the spine. Length through the top of the head, and nice and natural curves in the spine in this position. Make sure your arms are active, so pressing down, having the fingers nicely spread wide, and pressing down through the fingers and the heel of the hand will really activate the muscles of the arms, which will help you take the weight of the upper body. So first of all, we're going to do some cat. So we breathe in to prepare, and as we breathe out, we're going to tuck the pelvis, keeping the rest of the spine as still as possible at this point. So really work on tucking that pelvis, bringing the pubic bone between the knees. And then when you can't tuck the pelvis any further, then you allow the movement to come up through the lumbar spine, into the thoracic spine, back of the ribs. Gentle curving, flexing there, and then just tuck the head. Nice breath in at the top to hold. And then as you breathe out, lengthen both head and tailbone away. And again, breathing out. Coming up nice and slow. Tucking the head. Nice breath in to hold nice and wide into those ribs, and breathe out as you return. Let's do one more here. And return. Now we're going to challenge ourselves with challenge our balance by doing the tabletop movement. So beginning in this 4-point kneeling position again, you're going to breathe in to prepare, breathe out, slide one leg along the mat. So the toes are just still down on the mat and the leg is extended out behind you. Then as you breathe in, keeping the pelvis parallel to the floor, you're going to lift and lengthen the leg. You're going to breathe out to return it back down to the mat, and breathe in to draw it back in. Other side. Breathe out to take the leg away behind you. Breathe in as you lengthen and lift. Breathe breathe out as you bring it back down, and breathe in to return. Just going to move forward here. And again, breathing out. Breathe in to lift and lengthen. Breathe out and breathe in. And again. One more to each side. Really think about having a glass of water or a cup of tea on your pelvis and you don't want to spill it. So it's as much about length as it is about lifting the leg. Last one here. And then come back to your 4-point kneeling position, and you can come back into a rest position like this, which just really lengthens out the lower part of the spine nicely. Or you could do some more cat there if that's more comfortable. So now we're going to come down onto our fronts, and we're going to do a couple of exercises. We're going to do a diamond press, and we're going to do a cobra prep. So coming down onto our tummies, diamond press, interlace the fingers underneath the forehead if you can, if not, slightly wider. But I want the shoulders to feel comfortable and unrestricted. So coming down with your head on the mat and your legs are just hip width and parallel. So we're going to breathe in to prepare, and as we breathe out, we're going to slide the nose up the mat and just lift the head slightly. And then we're going to take the lift down through the top of the back and lift and lengthen the spine away, keeping the glutes and the rest of the muscles on the lower part of the body inactive for this. Breathing in at the top and breathe out to return. Breathe in to prepare, breathe out. Lift and lengthen. Gentle connection into the abdominals to support the lower part of the spine. You shouldn't feel this compress into the lower part of the back. If you do, a little bit more abdominal connection just to support and prevent the pelvis from moving. Let's do 2 more. Really think about bringing the breastbone through as much as you can. Just keep the elbows on the floor and the shoulder blades moving down the back. Last one. Okay. Now we're going to take our arms to goalpost, and we're going to take our legs hip distance, well, wider than hip distance, and the ankles such that the heels are rolled into the centre and the toes to the side. So the fingertips should be roughly level with eye line, forehead down on the mat, gentle connection into the abdominals, just to support the lower back, and shoulders away from the ears. We're going to breathe in to prepare, and as we breathe out, we're going to roll the nose up the mat to lift the head. Keeping the elbows on the floor, we're going to really allow the upper spine to extend as much as is comfortable. Breathing in at the top and breathe out to roll back down again. And again, breathing out. Really have a sense of sending the breastbone through the arms, allowing those shoulders to melt down the back and feel the connection of the muscles, the spinal extensor muscles down the back, really working quite hard here. And again, you may feel them working quite a long way down your back, and that's absolutely fine, but what we don't want to feel is any compression into the lower spine. It's quite a different feeling and not comfortable. So really work on sending the breastbone forwards. Last one. And back down to the mat. And then just push yourself back into a rest position, or you can come up into 4-point and do some cat, just to release the lower spine. Okay, rolling yourself back up to kneeling. Now we're just going to come into standing and do a couple more exercises here. You just move the mat out of the way. Okay. So we're going to come into some Pilates squats and then we're going to do side reach. So for Pilates squats, I'll stand side on. We want to stand with our feet hip distance apart and just a sense of length all the way up through the spine, through the top of the head. Shoulders away from the ears, arms lengthened down by your sides. Really have a sense of a slight connection whereby you're drawing up on the inside of the legs, up through the centre of the body, and that strength and that support goes up all the way through the top of the head. So we breathe in as we take a squat. So we're sending the pelvis back, flexing at the knees and the ankles, and just allowing the arms to come forward. And then push back up on the exhale. And again, inhale to come down, exhale to return. So here we're just looking for a neutral spine and pelvic alignment. So there should be no movement in the spine. This is purely movement in the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So think about sitting back into a chair each time, really pushing the sit bones back towards something behind you. Nice alignment. Allow the gaze just to come down to the floor. Don't keep the gaze going forwards to the windows or anything in front of you. Last couple here. And then come back up to standing. And now we're going to do a side reach. So standing with your feet slightly wider than hip distance apart, just to give you a slightly wider base of support, we're going to come into a nice lengthened position again with the spine standing up as tall as we can, arms down by our sides. Don't allow the arches of the feet to roll in, really activate through the arches as well as through the insides of the thighs. So taking a breath in, we're going to lengthen the arm out to the side and up above the head. The arm will actually be slightly in front of your head, which is the correct alignment for the shoulder with your arm elevated. And then we're going to breathe out as we lift, lengthen and reach over, keeping the weight through both sides of the pelvis nice and even. And then we're going to breathe in to hold. We're going to breathe out as we draw back up and all the way back down again. Other side. Breathing in to take the arm up. Breathe out to reach up and over. Keeping that lengthened side well anchored to the floor and reaching away through the tips of the fingers at the same time. So really get this nice feeling of stretch and length through the side. Back up and back down again. And again. You'll probably find one side is tighter than the other, and that's absolutely fine. If you find one side is tighter, then perhaps you could work a little bit more, doing a couple of extra to that side to really start to get some length through those muscles down the side of the spine and the body. And then the last one over here. And again over here. Well done.